She said it on the way out the door. Not in the heat of the argument was already over. She had her bag, her keys, her exit. And then she turned back almost as an afterthought and said, "You know nobody else is going to want you. You're too quiet, too in your head, too much work." And then she left. The door closed. I stood in the middle of my apartment, and I looked at the space she had just been standing in, and I waited to feel the thing you are supposed to feel when someone says something like that to you. The collapse, the devastation, the desperate need to call her back and prove that she was wrong. I didn't feel any of that. What I felt was something much quieter and much more dangerous. I felt clear, like a window had been cleaned, like something that had been slightly out of focus for 2 years had suddenly resolved into sharp detail. Like the last thing she had said, which was meant to wound me, had instead done something entirely different. It had told me exactly what the last 2 years had actually been. I sat down on the sofa. I looked at the wall. I thought for a long time. And then I picked up my phone, and I called the one person I should have called a long time ago. Part 1, 2 years of slowly disappearing. My name is Zara Singh, and I want to tell you who I was before Mira, because the person I was before matters more to the story than anything Mira said on her way out the door. I was 27 years old and I was a music producer. Not the famous kind, not the kind with the name on the album cover and the interviews and the profile in magazines. The kind that works in the engine room, the kind that makes the decisions about sound that most listeners don't consciously notice, but that determine whether a song feels like something or feels like nothing. I had a small studio in Bandra, rented, barely big enough for the equipment and 2 chairs. And I had been building a client list for 4 years, one artist at a time, on the basis of work that was honest and precise and cared about getting the sound right more than getting the credit. I was, before Mira, someone who had opinions, about music and about the world and about how things should be done. I was someone who stayed up late because the work required it, and who ate badly because I forgot to eat, and who had a small group of friends who were my whole social world, and who I trusted completely. I was someone who laughed loudly in the right moments and went very quiet in others, and who knew the difference between the two. I was, before Mira, someone who took up space. 2 years of Mira had made me smaller. Not through cruelty, I want to be fair about this. Not through obvious cruelty. Through the specific, cumulative, almost invisible process of being with someone who had very clear ideas about who you should be and who communicated those ideas in the particular language of concern. I just think you'd be happier if you were more social. I worry that you're too focused on work. Don't you think that friend of yours takes advantage of you? The language of care, deployed so consistently that you stop being able to tell the difference between being cared for and being reshaped. By the time she left, I had pulled back from 2 of my closest friends. I had taken on clients I didn't believe in because she said the money was more important than the artistic fit. I had stopped going to the late-night sessions that produced my best work because she said they were antisocial. I had become someone who checked in, who reported, who adjusted. The door had closed and I had felt clear. Because the thing she had said on the way out, "You're too quiet, too in your head, too much work," was not a wound. It was a description. And it was a description of the person I had been before her. The person she had spent 2 years making smaller. She had been right about who I was. She had been completely wrong about what that meant. The person I called was Sahil. Sahil Mehta had been my closest friend for 6 years, from the second year of college, when we had ended up in the same music theory class, and discovered, over the course of one long argument about a Miles Davis record, that we had identical opinions about almost everything except the one thing that mattered most, the correct ratio of melody to structure in composition, which meant we would never agree and would never stop talking. Mira had not liked Sahil. She had never said this directly, that was not her method. But she had found reasons why we couldn't meet, had described his directness as aggression, had made the space between us slightly wider in the incremental, deniable way she made all spaces wider. I had let it happen. I had let the friendship go slightly quiet, the calls getting further apart, the visits becoming rare. When he picked up the phone, he said, Finally. That was all, just finally. She's gone, I said. I know, he said. Come over. How do you know? I said. Because you called, he said. You only call when something is real. I had not realized, until he said it, how true that was. I went over. He made chai. We talked until 3 a.m. about everything, about Mira, about the 2 years, about the specific process of becoming smaller and the specific feeling of the window being cleaned. I told him what she had said on the way out. He listened to the whole thing without interrupting. And then he said, she was describing someone I miss. I looked at him. The quiet, in your head, too much work version of you, he said. That's the version that made the record I still listen to when I need to remember why music matters. She described you like it was an insult. She was just describing you. I looked at my tea. I got small, I said. Yes, he said, but you called, so you're done with that. Part 2, the studio and the stranger. I want to tell you about what I did in the months after Mira, because the doing is always the story. I went back to work, not the managed, practical, money-first work of the last year, the real work. I called clients I had turned down because they were too experimental and told them I was ready. I started staying late again, the late sessions that produce something you cannot get in daytime hours, the particular quality of music made when the city is quiet and the studio is warm and there is nothing between you and the sound except the work. I rebuilt the friendship with Sahil, which was easy in the way of things that were never really broken, just interrupted. We went back to arguing about Miles Davis with the same intensity as 6 years ago. I had missed the arguments. I had not realized how much until we were having them again. I got louder gradually, not performed loudness, the real kind, the kind that comes from not managing yourself down. I had opinions again. I took up space again. I stopped checking in. And 3 months after Mira left, I met Rayan. Rayan Iver came into my studio on a Tuesday afternoon in March. He was not there for me. He was there for a session with an artist I was working with, a singer-songwriter named Kabir who had booked the studio for the week. Rayan was Kabir's sound engineer, the person he traveled with for live work, and Kabir had asked if he could sit in on the studio session because he and Rayan had been working together long enough that having him in the room changed how Kabir performed. I had said yes, because I had no reason to say no. Rayan had come in quietly. Not shy, quietly, the way that certain people who are very confident about what they are doing move through spaces that are not theirs. He had looked at my setup with the focused, appreciative attention of someone who understood what they were looking at. He had found a chair in the corner, well out of the signal path, and had sat down with a notebook and had, for the first hour, simply listened. I had almost forgotten he was there. Then Kabir had struggled with a bridge, the melodic turn that was supposed to carry the emotional weight of the whole song, and I had stopped the session, and we had been going through options, and Rayan had said from the corner, quietly, "The rhythm is fighting the melody. The melody wants to slow down before the turn, but the rhythm isn't letting it breathe." Both Kabir and I had turned to look at him. He had looked slightly self-conscious. "Sorry," he said, "I can." "No," I said, "play it out." He had. He had talked through the breath point, the specific place in the bar where the rhythm needed to release so the melody could find its turn, with the kind of technical precision that is only available to someone who has spent a long time listening carefully. He was right. We had fixed the bridge in 40 minutes. I had looked at him across the studio afterward and said, "That was good." He had said, "Your instinct was already there, I just named it." I had looked at him for a moment. "Come back tomorrow," I said, "if you're free." He had looked at Kabir. Kabir had shrugged with the ease of someone who considered this a good development. "I'm free," Rayan had said. Part 3, the weeks. Working with Rayan was an education in paying attention. He was 29, 2 years older than me, from Chennai originally, had been doing live sound engineering for 7 years before transitioning into studio work. He had the particular knowledge of someone who had spent years in live venues, an understanding of how sound behaved in real space, in real air, around real bodies, that was different from studio-trained knowledge, and that added something to the work that I had not known I was missing. He was also, I discovered over the following weeks, someone who noticed things in the specific way that I notice things. Small things, the way a vocal performance changed between takes not just in the notes, but in the breath pattern, the specific frequency at which a guitar string buzzed that told you something about how the player was holding tension in their left hand. He paid attention with a completeness that I recognized because I did it too. The first week was professional, clean, clear about the work. We were making something good together and we both knew it, and the knowledge was satisfying in the way that professional satisfaction always is. The second week was when the edges started to blur. There is a specific intimacy in working on music with another person who understands music at the same level you do. The conversations are fast and precise and require a shorthand that you either have or you don't, and you know very quickly whether you have it. With Rayan, we had it from the first day, and the second week of having it started to produce something beyond professional satisfaction. I noticed it first as a quality of attention, the specific awareness of where he was in the studio, the way my ears tracked his movements before my eyes did. I noticed it as the thing that happened when he leaned across the board to point at something on the screen and was close enough that I was aware of the closeness in a way that had nothing to do with sound engineering. I filed it. I was 3 months out of a 2-year relationship. I was in the process of rebuilding. I was not going to act on anything without being certain, and certainty required time. I filed it and I kept working. Sahil noticed before I had said anything. This was not surprising. Sahil was observant in the specific way of people who have known you long enough to read your baseline and can therefore detect deviations. We had dinner one evening in the 3rd week of sessions, and he had looked at me across the table and said, "Tell me about the sound engineer." "He's the artist's engineer," I said, "not mine." "Tell me about him anyway," Sahil said. I told him the bridge observation, the live sound knowledge, the shorthand we had found. I told him in the professional framing, and I watched Sahil listen to the professional framing with the expression of someone who is hearing a completely different story. "Zara," he said. "It's professional," I said. "It started professional," he said. "What is it now?" I ate my food. "I don't know yet," I said. "Fair enough," he said. "But the fact that you're saying yet tells me something." I looked at him. "I'm 3 months out," I said. "I know," he said. "I'm not pushing, I'm just observing." "Observe less loudly," I said. He smiled, said nothing, observed everything. Part 4, the late session. The moment things shifted, the actual moment, the one I can locate precisely, was a Thursday night in the 4th week. The session had run long. Kabir had gone home at 11, which he did when the work was going well, and he trusted us to finish. Rayan and I had been working on a final mix element, a texture layer in the 3rd verse that had been almost right for 2 days and was on the verge of resolving. It was past midnight. The studio was warm and dark except for the board lighting. We had been at it for an hour without a break, both leaning toward the monitors, making small adjustments and listening and adjusting again. And then it had resolved. The texture had settled into its place in the sound field, and the verse had opened up in the way that it had been wanting to for 2 days, and we had both heard it at the same moment. The studio went quiet. Not the silence of something ending, the silence of something being finished. I had turned to look at him. He had turned to look at me. And we had been very close, closer than I had registered in the absorbed concentration of the last hour. And his expression was the specific one of someone who has just heard something go right and is in the moment before the professional response, the moment that is just the pure experience of a thing being correct. "There it is," he said quietly. "Yes," I said. We were looking at each other. I do not know how long we looked at each other. Long enough that it was not the normal duration of eye contact between 2 professionals who have just solved a problem together. Long enough that both of us knew it was something else. I looked away first. I turned back to the board. I made a note in the session file. "Same time tomorrow," I said. Yes, he said. His voice was slightly different, careful. Good night, I said. Good night, he said. He left. I sat in the studio alone for 20 minutes, the finished mix playing in the monitors, thinking about nothing in particular and everything that mattered. Part 5, Sahil's question. I called Sahil the next morning. Something happened, I said. Tell me, he said. I told him about the late session, the resolved texture, the silence, the looking. He was quiet for a moment when I finished. What did it feel like? He said, not asking me to analyze it, asking me to report it accurately. Clear, I said. He was quiet again. That's the same word you used when Mira left, he said. I had not noticed that. I sat with it. Different kind of clear, I said. Tell me the difference, he said. When Mira left, I said slowly, it was clear the way a window is clear when something has been removed from it. Empty, but readable. I paused. This is clear the way a window is clear when you're looking through it at something specific. There's something on the other side. Sahil was quiet for a moment. Zara, he said. I know, I said. You need to figure out what he is, he said. Not immediately, but you need to pay attention and figure it out, because you don't get that kind of clear twice in 3 months and mean nothing by it. I looked at the ceiling. I'm 3 months out, I said again. I know, he said. I'm not saying do something today. I'm saying don't file this one in the same drawer as the bridge problem. The sessions continued. The work was very good. Kabir's record was becoming something that I knew, with the quiet certainty that comes from real work, was going to matter, not to everyone, but to the people it reached, it was going to reach them properly. Rayan's contribution was woven through it in ways that were not credited but were present, the way the best contributions always are. Between us, something was different after the Thursday night. Not in the professional work, that continued with the same focused efficiency, but in the spaces around the work, the moments between takes, the breaks where we got chai from the small place around the corner and came back and sat in the studio with the monitors off and talked. We talked about music, always. That was the first language. But the music talk expanded, the way it does when two people are using a subject as the container for something larger. We talked about what we thought good music was supposed to do, whether it was supposed to comfort or challenge or witness. We talked about the records that had changed us specifically, not the canonical list, but the personal one, the ones that had arrived at a moment when you needed exactly what they were. He told me about a period 3 years ago when he had stopped working, a bad situation with a project that had gone wrong in a way that had made him doubt the entire field. He had taken 6 months off, had gone home to Chennai, had done nothing music-related for the first time since he was 14. What brought you back? I said. I heard something, he said. A street musician, outside my parents' building, playing something I couldn't identify, and I stood there for 40 minutes listening and I realized that the bad project had made me hate the industry, not the music. And the music was still just the music. I looked at him. What was he playing? I said. I never found out, he said. I asked him and he said he'd made it up as he went. It was gone as soon as it was done. I sat with that. That's the best kind, I said. He looked at me. I know, he said. That's when I came back. Part 6, the complication. The sessions ended in the 5th week. Kabir's record was done. It was very good, and we all knew it, and there was the specific satisfaction of something completed, the version of satisfaction that is also the end of the context that produced it. The studio was booked by someone else the following week. Kabir was going back to his own work. Rayan's engagement with the project was complete. I had not thought ahead to this. I had been so absorbed in the work and in the gradual, careful thing happening in the spaces around the work that I had not fully registered that the sessions were not permanent. The last day, we had done the final check of the mixes. Kabir had been there and had left early with the files, satisfied. Rayan and I had been alone in the studio for the last hour doing the technical closeout, archiving the sessions, checking the export files. When it was done, we had stood in the studio in a way that felt different from the previous times we had left for the night. This was not see you tomorrow. This was not nothing, but undefined. This was good work, he said. Yes, I said, it was. I'd like to do it again, he said, carefully, professionally, but with something underneath the professional that I heard clearly. There'll be other projects, I said. I'd like to work on yours, he said, not just Cabier's. I looked at him. I work alone usually, I said. I know, he said. I've been watching you work. You work alone very well. A pause. I think you might work with company even better. The studio was quiet. I have a project starting in 3 weeks, I said. A new artist, experimental, no guarantee it goes anywhere. I'm interested, he said. It would be a trial, I said. See if the collaboration works across a whole project, not just a week of sessions. Understood, he said. And I stopped, started again, and I want to be direct about something. He waited. The last 5 weeks have been professionally one of the best working experiences I've had, I said. I want to make sure that whatever else is happening doesn't complicate that, because the work matters most. He looked at me carefully. I agree, he said. The work matters most. A pause. But I don't think what else is happening is going to complicate the work. I think it might be related to what makes the work good. I looked at him. 3 weeks, I said. The new project starts in 3 weeks. Come to the first session and we'll see. He picked up his bag. 3 weeks, he said. He left. I stayed in the studio and sat in the quiet and thought about clarity and windows and what is on the other side. Part 7, the 3 weeks. 3 weeks is both a long time and not a long time. I worked. I prepared for the new project, an artist named D.H. Ruv who made music that existed somewhere between electronic and folk in a way that was either going to be extraordinary or completely unmarketable, and I had decided to find out which. I did the preparation with the focused energy I had been recovering since Mira left, the specific absorption of work that you have chosen because you believe in it. Sahil and I had dinner twice. He asked about Rayan with the careful frequency of someone who is interested, but is trying not to push. I told him what I had said at the end of the last session. He looked at me with the expression he wore when he thought I had done something right. You said the work matters most, he said. It does, I said. But you invited him back, he said. The collaboration is good, I said. Both things, he said, simultaneously. Yes, I said. He nodded, said nothing more, which was how Sahil showed approval. The 3 weeks were also complicated by something I had not anticipated. Mira called. Not once, twice. The first call I did not pick up, which was not avoidance but a genuine assessment that I had nothing to say that would be useful. The second call came while I was walking home from the studio on a quiet evening, and I picked up because I was tired of not picking up. I've been thinking about what I said, she said. When you leave someone's apartment after 2 years and on the way out say something cruel, the things you said tend to either not stay with you at all or stay with you completely. She sounded like someone they had stayed with. Okay, I said. I said something that wasn't fair, she said. I walked. The city moved around me. You were describing me, I said. You just thought it was an insult. A pause. I didn't mean it as. I know, I said. I'm not angry about it. It was actually clarifying. Another pause. Are you okay? She said. Yes, I said and meant it. I'm very okay, are you? She was quiet for a moment. I think so, she said. I think I need to figure some things out. That sounds right, I said, not unkind, just honest. We talked for a few minutes more, the specific short conversation of 2 people who are not enemies and are not what they were and are trying to find the shape of what remains. It was not dramatic. It was not satisfying in the way of scenes in stories. It was just real. Take care of yourself, I said at the end. You too, she said. I hung up and walked home and felt, not triumph, not grief, just completion. The way a thing feels when it is actually done. Part 8, DHRUV's project and Rayan's return. Rayan arrived at the studio on a Tuesday morning 3 weeks after the last session. On time, with good chai from the place around the corner, with his notebook. I looked at him in the doorway, and something that had been slightly tense for 3 weeks released. "You found the chai place," I said. "I remembered," he said. We went in. The first session with DHRUV was everything I had hoped, genuinely exploratory. The kind of work where you don't know yet what the record is going to be, and that uncertainty is not anxiety, but possibility. DHRUV was an extraordinary instinctive musician who needed exactly the right technical framing to make his instincts producible. Rayan understood this immediately and positioned himself accordingly, not taking over the space but making the space better, the same role he had played with Kabir, but adapted to a completely different context. At the end of the day, DHRUV had gone home happy. Rayan and I had stayed to organize the session files. "Well," I said. "This record," he said, "is going to be something I want to be part of. Even if it goes nowhere commercially," I said. "Especially then," he said. I looked at him. "Why?" I said. "Because the best records go somewhere that isn't commercial," he said. "They go into specific people, and those people carry them for years and don't know why." I looked at him for a long time. "Like the street musician," I said. He met my eyes. "Yes," he said, "exactly like that." Part 9, The Distance. I have to tell you about what happened in the second month of DHRUV's project, because it was the part that almost went wrong, and I want to be honest about how and why. The work was going very well. The record was revealing itself in the way that good records do session by session, each one uncovering something about what the album was trying to be. Rayan's presence had become essential in ways I had not predicted and would not have predicted because they were specific to the particular chemistry of the three of us in that space. But I had been managing. Not managing in the Mira way, not making myself smaller. Managing in the other way, the way I managed when I was afraid of something. Keeping a professional distance that was slightly wider than necessary. Being warm in the work and careful outside it. Not allowing the thing that had been building since the Thursday night of the resolved texture to move toward anything more specific. Rayan noticed. Of course he noticed. He noticed everything. That was one of the things about him. He said it on a Wednesday evening when DHRUV had gone, and we were the last two in the studio. A situation that had become the most regular part of our schedule, and that I had been careful not to examine too directly. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Yes," I said. "Are you protecting the work or protecting yourself?" he said. I looked at him. "What do you mean?" I said. "You said the last day of Kabir's sessions that you wanted to make sure nothing complicated the work," he said. "And I agreed with you. I think we've been very careful about the work. The work is good." He paused. "But I think you're also using the work as a reason to not say something that you could say." I looked at the board. "I'm 3 months out of a long relationship," I said. The same thing I kept saying. A true thing that was also, I heard for the first time as I said it, running out of its usefulness as a reason for anything. "I know," he said. "You've said that before." "It's still true," I said. "Yes," he said, "but 3 months ago was also the right reason." "I'm not sure it's still the same reason." I looked at him. "What do you think the reason is now?" I said. He was quiet for a moment. "I think the reason now is that you had something tell you very specifically, that you were too much, too quiet, too in your head. And even though you know that was wrong, part of you is still checking whether it's true." The studio was very still. I had not told him what Mira had said on the way out. Sahil knew, but I had not told Rayan. "I didn't tell you what she said," I said. "You didn't have to," he said. "I've been watching you work. I know the version of you that exists in this studio when you're completely in it. I know when you're all the way present and when you're one step behind the glass." He paused. "You're behind the glass right now." I looked at him for a long moment. "She said I was too quiet," I said. "Too in my head, too much work." He received this. She was describing the version of you that made the best music I've heard in years, he said, simply, without any performance, just as a fact that he had observed and was now reporting. I looked away. Rayan, I said. Yes, he said. I'm not good at this, I said. The part that isn't work, I have evidence that I am specifically not good at it. I know you have that evidence, he said. I also know that evidence is from one source, and one source is not a sufficient sample. I almost laughed. You're making a scientific argument for. I'm making any argument that works, he said. I'm not particularly proud about which argument I use. I looked at him properly. This person across the studio, who had named the breath point in the bridge on the first day, who had come back with chai, who had talked about the street musician and the music that was gone as soon as it was done, who had looked at me across the board at midnight when the texture resolved and had been completely present for all of it. I'm behind the glass, I said. Yes, he said. I'm trying not to be, I said. I know, he said. I can see you trying. What do you need from me? I said. He looked at me. Just come through the glass, he said. That's it, nothing more complicated than that. Part 10, the record and the roof. The record took 4 months to complete. It was, by the end of those 4 months, exactly what I had hoped it would be, and several things I had not known to hope for. D.A. Shruv's instincts had been given the right frame, and what had emerged was something that existed somewhere between folk memory and electronic landscape in a way that I believed was genuine and could not be manufactured. It was the best work I had done. It was also, I knew, the best work I had done partly because of what was happening in the spaces around the sessions. The particular quality of attention I brought to the work when I was not spending energy on management, not managing myself, not managing the thing with Rayan into a careful professional box, not checking in or reporting or adjusting. Just being, in the studio with people who were doing something real. I had come through the glass, gradually and then all at once, the way it always happens. Rayan and I had not had a single moment that you could point to and say, there, that is when it changed. It had changed the way light changes in a room when the season shifts, gradually, incrementally, and then one day you notice that the quality is completely different and you cannot identify the specific moment it became so. We had started talking after sessions without a professional reason to stay. We had started walking home part of the same route, the long way through the lanes of Bandra that I knew well and that he was learning. He had met Sahil. That was a significant meeting, because Sahil was the test I didn't acknowledge as a test, and Rayan had passed it by the simple method of being genuinely interested in Sahil as a person and having opinions about Miles Davis that Sahil found, to his considerable surprise, partially convincing. Sahil had called me the next day and said, he argued me into a corner about kind of blue, and I'm still not sure how. What did you say? I said. I said he was wrong, Sahil said, but I said it with less conviction than usual. That's the highest available praise from you, I said. Don't tell him that, Sahil said. The moment I want to tell you about happened on the last day of the record. The final mixes were done. D.A. Shruv had approved everything. The record was going to the label the following morning. The three of us had sat in the studio and listened to the whole thing, front to back, in the dark with the monitors up, the way you are supposed to listen to a finished record, the way that tells you whether it is real or whether it is the idea of a thing rather than the thing itself. It was real. D.A. Shruv had left, moved in the way you are moved when something you have made has turned out to be what you believed it could be. Rayan and I had been alone in the studio. The monitors were quiet, the files were archived, the work was done. Come up to the roof, I said. The building my studio was in had a rooftop that I had never used but that existed. I had a key. I had gone up once, 2 years ago, before Mira, and had stood there looking at the city and thought that someday I would have a reason to come back. We went up. Mumbai at night from a Bandra rooftop is a particular kind of thing. All that density and light, the particular way a big city looks when you are above it and can see its whole texture. We stood at the parapet and the air was warm, and the city was doing everything cities do at 11 at night, which is everything. It's good, he said. The record, the view, the night, all of it contained in those 2 words. Yes, I said. We stood for a while. Rayan, I said. Yes, he said. She said I'd never find someone else, I said. Specifically that I was too much work. He was quiet. I want you to know, I said, that I've been thinking about that. Not because I believe it, I stopped believing it a while ago, but because I want to say clearly to someone who has been here for all of this. Zara, he said. Let me finish, I said. He waited. I want to say that she was wrong, I said. Not just as a fact, as something I know now from evidence, real evidence, from 4 months of someone showing me a different version of what working alongside someone can look like. The city hummed below us. He turned to look at me. You are not too much work, he said. You are exactly the right amount of everything. The quiet and the in your head and the late sessions and the decisions about sound that nobody else would make, but that make the music right. All of it. Exactly right. I looked at him. She was describing me like it was a problem, I said. It's not a problem, he said. It's you. We stood at the parapet with the city below us, and I felt the specific quality of the clear window. Not the empty kind, not the cleaned kind. The kind where you are looking through at something specific and can see it completely. I'm done being behind the glass, I said. He looked at me. I know, he said. I could tell. And something in the night air, warm and city-lit, settled around us like a thing that had been trying to happen for 4 months and had finally found its moment. Part 11, what Sahil said. I called Sahil the next morning. He picked up and said, Tell me. She was wrong, I said. A pause, and then, with the specific warmth that Sahil reserved for the moments that mattered. I know she was wrong. I've known for 6 years. I know you have, I said. Tell me what happened, he said. I told him. The rooftop, the city, the things we had said. I told him in the full version, not the summarized one, the version that included what it had felt like to say the thing out loud, that I was not too much, that the quiet and the in your head and the all of it were not a problem but a person. When I finished, he said, The window. What? I said. You said 2 things, he said. When Mira left and when you told me about the studio, both times you said clear. But the second time you said something was on the other side. Yes, I said. What's on the other side? He said. I thought about the rooftop and the city and the 4 months of sessions and the way the texture had resolved and the breath point in the bridge and the street musician who played something that was gone as soon as it was done, but that had brought someone back to music. Everything that matters, I said. Sahil was quiet for a moment. Good, he said, finally. Part 12, the morning light. 6 months after Mira left. I want to tell you about the studio on a Tuesday morning, because Tuesday mornings are where the real work happens. The studio is mine, still rented, slightly too small, exactly right. It has new equipment that I have added carefully and specifically. The accumulation of 6 months of working at the level that makes such additions possible. The client list has grown, but I am not taking clients I don't believe in. The work is honest and the work is mine. Rayan is here most Tuesdays. He has other projects, live work that takes him to other cities, engineering jobs that are his and not mine, and we have the particular structure of 2 people who have independent lives that intersect with intention. This is, I have come to understand, the right structure. Not merged, not managed, chosen. DHRUV's record came out 2 months ago. It went where I said it would go, not commercial, not viral, not on any chart. It went into specific people. I have received messages from strangers who heard it in circumstances I cannot predict and who carried it in ways I cannot track. This is the best thing a record can do. I know this is the best thing because Rayan told me about the street musician. The studio is warm. The city is doing its Tuesday morning things outside. There is chai from the place around the corner. Rayan remembered which one, the first day of the new project, and came back with the right one without being told. Sahil comes by sometimes. He and Rayan have an ongoing argument about Miles Davis that shows no signs of resolution, and that I watch with the specific satisfaction of someone who has built something that fits together correctly. Mira is in another city. She is doing well from what I understand. I bear her no ill will. I am, at this point, grateful not for what she said, but for the clarity it produced. The window cleaned, and what was on the other side. I am too quiet, too in my head, too much work. These things are still true. They were never problems. They are the version of me that makes the music right. She was wrong. She was completely, entirely, and in every specific wrong. Clapperboard final hook. She stood in the doorway with her bag and her keys and her exit fully prepared, and she said the things she said. And I sat on the sofa and felt clear. I did not know what the clarity meant yet. I did not know about the studio and the Thursday night and the bridge and the breath point and the rooftop and the city. I did not know about 4 months of someone showing me a completely different version of what being alongside someone could mean. I knew one thing. The quiet and the in your head and the too much work, those were not my flaws. Those were me. And I was going to go back to being me, completely and without apology, and I was going to build something real, and I was going to find out whether she was right. She was not right. The record is out. The studio is warm. Sahil is still losing an argument about Miles Davis. And the person who named the breath point in the bridge is here on Tuesday mornings with the right chai from the right place. She was wrong in every way that a person can be wrong about another person. And I am finally, fully, completely, exactly myself. If this story found something you needed to hear, if someone once told you that you were too much, too quiet, too anything like it, share it with someone who is still carrying those words and subscribe. Tell me in the comments, what did someone say about you that turned out to be the most wrong thing ever said? And one last question. 3 months from now, Mira comes back to Mumbai, and she walks into an event, and she sees me, and she sees everything that is different and everything that is the same and everything that her words produced in me, not the damage she intended, but the clarity she accidentally gave me. And she says something. Should I tell you what she said? Part 2 is coming. Eyes. Subscribe. You will not want to miss it. The Revenge Chronicles.